I will repeat now the last sentences said yesterday. And oh yes, it works.
It is on.
So good.
Let's read to increase the volume.
It works. Yes.
The red light.
Okay.
It works. Well, I will begin with the last sentences of the speech I delivered yesterday. And today we are not marching so fast. We are marching, or better, we walk to understand better metaphysics. Metaphysics is essentially the knowledge of the universal, the knowledge of principles. We have to understand what is knowledge. And we have different languages here, yes? Knowledge. And we are trained more or less in the academic world, understand knowledge, or in the field of epistemology, very empirical. There are not lectures about metaphysics, yeah? Or if they call it metaphysics, so it is not metaphysics. The philosophy of Kant is called sometimes metaphysics, but it is not metaphysics in our understanding. Yeah? So we have to understand what is knowledge. I know something. Yeah, we understand it. I know something. Is that knowledge? The knowledge begins when I will unify with the object. I'm the subject, and there is a process of unification. How? Is this within me? No. Not so. But there is an image of this bottle within me. And it is a very complicated process of perception. Yes, so if you study, we can't do that here. We need a semester every day, 2 lectures to understand problems of perception. And you have perception in the Greek philosophy, Aristotle, Plato, in the modern philosophy, and in the other traditions. In Buddhism is perception a completely other image, yes? And so it is very, very important for yourself, for your studies later, to understand the process of knowledge. Aristotle, Thomas Aquinas, and many other thinkers said knowledge begins with perception. Attention, please. Indeed, you can make the perception because it is just ready. Your head, your mind is ready for that. So, don't understand perception as a sensual process. Yes? Don't understand, this I am sensual, bum, bum, bum. No. Perception is more. Perception is the beginning, but before the beginning, knowledge began. Yes? Don't understand it mechanically. And that is, in the medieval ages, they understood it in the beginning very good in the Aristotelian sense, and they read, of course, Aristotle, and the commentaries of Aristotle in the Greek time were very important, yes, a lot. And there is a tradition of understanding, of explanation of the Aristotelian philosophy. And Mr. Duns Scotus came, a Franciscan monk, and changed a little bit these old Greek tradition. And that is the beginning of modernity. If we speak about the epistemological roots of modernity, doesn't begin in the Renaissance, it begins in the late medieval ages within Christianity, within clergy. He was a monk. He's buried in Cologne, Duns Scotus. So that is only, I will show you, if you want to study, so read Analytica Posteriora of Aristotle. Yes, if you will study philosophy. Huh? If you will go the journey, you doesn't need such things. But we are a mixture of that, yes. On the one side, academic life, on the other side, beyond. But that's normal. So, the first sentence was, metaphysics is essentially the knowledge of the universal, the knowledge of principles. Knowledge belonging to the universal order of necessity lies beyond all distinctions that condition the knowledge of individual things. And I spoke now about perception process, and that is the knowledge of individual things. I know this book. I see this book. That's a perception process. And condition that knowledge of individual things, of which that between subject and object is a general and basic type. This also goes to show that the object of metaphysics is in no wise comparable with the particular object of any other kind of knowledge whatsoever. You understand probably, I began with perception, sensual perception, and so on, but metaphysical knowledge is beyond this way of perception, yes? Is beyond. Of course, if you begin to read Plato, it is easier. But Aristotle is very difficult. If you read Aristotle only in the Aristotelian way, you can be empiristic or what you want, and you will forget even metaphysics. He's a very, very complicated thinker. Yes, but he is a Platonist. You will read in the histories of philosophy that he was against. Yes, he was the disciple of Plato. But in the main feature of his philosophy is Platonic. Only the beginning, the perception, he tried to explain metaphysics in another way. And indeed, it can only knowledge, referred metaphysical knowledge, referred to as an object purely by analogy, because in order to speak of it at all, one is forced to attach to it some denomination or other. Well, metaphysics is beyond dianoetic thinking, beyond discursivity, is beyond discursive thinking. Yes? Our normal thinking is, and we are thinking sometimes, seldom, but when I say I think, no, that's not thinking. Thinking is a very hard work, working with terms, with concepts, and so on, and no emotions. Thinking is hard work, yes. Thinking is hard work. Therefore, a seminary, if you have a seminary and the Platonic text, and you read the text, and you try to analyze the text, to understand the text, so your emotions doesn't play any role, only your understanding. And so philosophy is a hard work. True philosophy is a hard work. And metaphysics, in our understanding, is beyond discursive thinking, yes? It is beyond. How it is possible. Likewise, when one speaks of the means of attaining metaphysical knowledge, it is evident that such means can only be one and the same thing as knowledge itself, in which subject and object are essentially unified. I spoke about perception, I perceiving this bottle. No? You can say, oh well, that's an empirical process. No. A cat can see the bottle too and perceive that. Yeah? What is the difference between the cat and human being? The reason. The cat has not reason. Man has a reason, if he has a reason. Ratio.
We don't know.
Many doesn't know that they have reason.
Potentially we have reason.
Yes, potentially. All, yes. But they feel something and they say, oh, I'm thinking. No, they are feeling something. Good feeling is good, yes? That's all the faculties of our soul, traditionally speaking, yes? Modern psychology doesn't know that we have a soul, yes? Modern psychology doesn't know what is soul. It's a very old concept. Well, what is important here, metaphysical knowledge itself, in which subject and object are essentially unified. The place of the unifying is where? Is within my mind. Is within me. This amounts to saying that the means in question of indeed it is permissible to describe it by that word cannot in any way resemble. No, I mixed some texts of a kind, yes. It's permissible to describe it by that word cannot in any way resemble the exercise of a discursive faculty such as individual human reason. The modern philosophers are indeed not philosophers. And the professors of philosophy are not philosophers, yes. That's nonsense. A true philosopher doesn't need academic education. He has to think. Yes, if he can think. Well, that's a shock for you, huh? But I like to shock sometimes people and myself. Now, that's a kind of self-irony. And you know, irony is a concept of Socrates and Plato to find the truth by dialogue, but in the Greek sense of the word, in the deepest sense of the word, dialegestai. The modern dialogues are nonsense. Mostly it's blah blah blah. But the true dialogue is, I'm not prepared. I have not a conception ready. I'm ready to receive and to give something. Yes, that is the true dialogue. And discursive faculty, that is the work of good philosophers. Discursive faculty. The metaphysics are very seldom, very, very seldom. If you read the books of Heidegger, he is very cautious with the concept of metaphysics, and he criticized even that what is metaphysics, but he was more metaphysician as many others. Because in philosophy he was humble, yes, humble. The aim of philosophy is truth. As we have said before, we are dealing with the supra-individual and consequently with the supra-rational order, which does not in any way mean the irrational. Yesterday we said, yes. So we have the discursive, the faculty of discursive thinking, and we have within us the faculty of metaphysical, pure metaphysical knowledge. You understand? And modernity consists in reducing this metaphysical knowledge. It's not, doesn't exist for them. That's nonsense. That's irrational. Yeah? And this process of reducing metaphysical knowledge began in the medieval time. With Duns Scotus, of course, he was a great thinker without any doubt, a pious man and so on. But he changed the explanation of Aristotle, or better to say, of the commentaries of Aristotle. In Jewish religion there is a saying, Schuon quotes that in the book of Understanding Islam, the commentaries are more important as the original text. Yes, but it's Jewish ulama, or there are commentaries. They come not to the point. They need a shock. Metaphysics cannot contradict reason, but it stands above reason. And that we have the faculty of discursive thinking. Our discursive thinking is indeed, it depends indeed from the metaphysical way, yes? If we are in the context of traditional thinking. But I will shock you again. Tradition, we spoke yesterday about tradition. And we can say, we are here in a traditional seminary, we are going to a traditional town, we are in a traditional republic, we are in a traditional. What's that? True, the word tradition means the eternity of the first founding of the presence, the eternal presence of the founding process of a religion, of a revelation. Yes, the revelation is present, not by historical material and so on, but present in a spiritual way. I'm participating immediately in this process of founding. And with this you can criticize the ulama and all others. It is necessary to find the true tradition, the true belief, and not many explanations. There are some wonderful explanations, but you cannot live. You have to go to the sources. Yes, I'm a little bit radical at the moment. Not too much. Metaphysics cannot contradict reason, clear, but it stands above reason, which has no bearing here except as a secondary means for the foundation and external expression of truths that lie beyond its province and outside its scope. And that's the main difficulty, yes, for many people to understand how it's beyond reason. I think, that's wonderful, but it is beyond. You can read metaphysical texts and you will understand these texts immediately, and you have, if you understand these texts immediately, a metaphysical knowledge. But it needs exercise. You have to exercise that, yeah? Therefore read texts. Texts, very important texts of metaphysicians. It comes immediately, or it comes not, but it comes. So we will speak now about intuition, but not in the modern psychological sense of intuition. Metaphysical truths can only be conceived by the use of a faculty that does not belong to the individual order, and that, by reason of the immediate character of its operation, may be called intuitive, but only on the strict condition that it is not regarded as having anything in common with the faculty which certain contemporary so-called philosophers call intuition, a purely instinctive and vital faculty that is really beneath reason and not above it. Yes, I'm intuitive. I feel. That's the modern concept. If it is a concept, it's not a concept of intuition. No, the metaphysical concept of intuition is more, it is above reason. It is above reason. And if you are using reason, you are in a world, I will not say cold, but the true metaphysics are very dry men. And true metaphysical texts are dry texts. For the beginners, yes, are dry. Because they don't allow emotions. You can have emotions, yes. Yesterday, Ayatollah explained this aspect that you have emotions and so on. But if you read the Quran and the different degrees of the soul of emotions, that is the most difficult part of our life. Yes, emotions. I'm sad, I'm glad, and so on. But who enters the halls of philosophy has forgot a lot of emotions, of course. Yeah. But you can be very glad, but not in this primitive sense. I'm glad, yes, but deeper, it is an inner joy. So intuition here in the metaphysical understanding, not psychologically. Somebody said women have intuition, yes, they feel something.
So they claim.
We can now find some ahadis in the Islamic tradition. They know the old one very good. What's that, and like to handle. Therefore, fiqh is sometimes important, yes. Don't allow too much emotions, yes. To be more precise, it should be said that the faculty we are now referring to is intellectual intuition, the reality of which has been consistently denied by modern philosophy, which has failed to grasp its real nature, whenever it has not preferred simply to ignore it. If you begin to study the works of Edmund Husserl, he was very dry, and his seminaries were more drier, yes. And but if you study these books, it takes time, many years, yes. At the end, your mind will be open to that, more or less, what the Platonic philosophy says. Not easier, but Husserl is the last philosopher in a deep Platonic sense to find the truth metaphysically with many problems, because he fought against psychology, yes, and he destroyed this sentimental philosophy of the modern philosophy. He was a Platonist in his essence, yes, in his essence. And at the end of his life, he wrote a little book. It's his lecture in Vienna in Vienna and in Belgrade, about the crisis of the modern world. In another sense, as Guénon, yes, the crisis of modern science. The crisis of modern science. So we have different ways. Different ways. We will show in the next hours, I wish I tried to do that the direction of Guénon, yes, not only Guénon did, there are other ways more or less to the same goal. Yeah. Intuition, the reality of which has been consistently denied by modern philosophy, which has failed to grasp its real nature whenever it has not preferred simply to ignore it. This faculty can also be called the pure intellect, in Sanskrit buddhi. Buddhi, Sanskrit buddhi, and Arabic aql. In the medieval times they said intellectus. Intellectus, that's the problem of terminology. The most interesting logic I found, that's my experience, we can find in Buddhism, in Indian Buddhism, of course. They have a logic system who is so fine, so interesting, all faculties. So if you have time to study. This faculty can also be called the pure intellect, intellectus purus. And the intellectus purus is able to understand, that's a way of understanding, the actus purus. Actus purus is God, metaphysical terminology, but actus purus is God, the pure reality. That's the English way of translating, yes? The German say for that Wirklichkeit. And we have the word Realität too, so we have both possibilities, but Wirklichkeit is really the pure reality. Reality is the same like actus purus, the reality, well in English, the reality of God, the supreme reality, the supreme identity. That is now the terminology of Guénon. And actus purus, intellectus purus, that's the medieval terminology. And Dr. Parsania will explain to you all the concepts of akal, of intellectus. And you will see there are many descriptions, many degrees of that in the Islamic philosophy. This faculty can also be called the pure intellect, following the practice of Aristotle and his scholastic successors. For to them the intellect was in fact that faculty which possessed a direct knowledge of principles. Principles. He is a man without principles, we say sometimes. Yes? No, these principles are expressions of the pure intellect. Not attributes. For example, that the unconditional truth. Yes, the good and all these expressions. That they are principles for thinking, for metaphysical thinking. Aristotle expressly declares that the intellect is truer than science. In Greek, intellect is nous, and science is episteme. Yeah, epistemology. Yeah. Episteme is science. Which amounts to saying that it is more true than the reason which constructs that science. All knowers of Aristotle have to know that, but they don't. You find books that they don't explain that. That is more true than the reason which constructs that science. He also says that nothing is more true than the intellect, for it is necessarily infallible from the fact that its operation is immediate, and because, not being really distinct from its object, it is identified with the truth itself. That is the metaphysical expression of the spiritual journey, more or less. And that is the doctrine. And the doctrine you have to realize. Yes? If you, a doctrine you have to realize. In the Greek Orthodox Church, the Greeks have this distinction, the fathers. Bios theoretikos. Bios is life. The theoretical life and the practical life. Bios praktikos. But they are together. In bios theoretikos, you have the doctrine, and you have to realize bios practicos, that what you understand. It's a wonderful expression. You can find it in Islamic mysticism and everywhere. So take your books and throw them away after you studied that, yes, and understood, and so on. But no, not to, please, that's a joke. But you know what is a ladder, yes? Ladder, first degree, second degree, third degree. Oh, now I reach the goal. Will you contempt the ladder? You came to this goal by the ladder. Therefore, be thankful, thanksgiving to all these steps and degrees, and to your books, more or less, if they are good books. What is here important, distinct from its object, it is identified with the truth itself. It is the direct way. Metaphysical knowledge is direct, is not indirect by other concept. It is an immediate, direct process.